This is Toni Campana, and I'm joining you today in a video that was previously filmed. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to pop on and do a live, so I wanted to be able to at least get something to contribute to the group. Today's project is going to be using the prized peony stamp set. Actually, we're only going to use one stamp out of this, and then the peony dies. And I wanted to do this particular set because I wanted to show how easy it is to use the peony dies. When I first saw them, I kind of cringed and thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be complicated. And they are not in the least bit complicated. So first, let me show you the card that I'm going to make for you today. And I have uploaded the sizes of the card stock, and I'm also going to have a tutorial available to post with this video, so you'll have the step-by-step instructions as well. But I used pretty much, I think, everything out of the suite except for the ribbon. I am in love with the crinkled white seam binding. It's my favorite ribbon of all, I think. So I did use that instead, but I used the embellishments and of course the dies, the doilies. So, and I also, we're going to use the punch today, and I am going to be completely brain dead because I can't remember the name of the punch that we're going to be using, but it is in the new catalog. So we're going to be using this punch to make this label, and I want to show you a little time saver. It's not my idea. I can't remember the demonstrator who actually shared this, and if it's somebody that was in the NC Demos group, please tag yourself on this. But it's a very easy way to make sure that your tag is the exact size of your sentiment. So let's go ahead and get started. And I think what I want to do, since there is only one bit of stamping on here, is I'm going to start with that stamp. So the punch will punch 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch strips. And the only tip I would have for you is that when you're cutting those widths, cut them just shy of those measurements. So just a little bit less than 1/2, a little bit less than 3/4, and a little bit less than 1 inch. And the reason for that is you want your strips to slide easily in here. You don't want to be forcing or have to force it in, because it's going to affect the way it actually punches for you. So the stamp sentiment we're going to use is "Love and Thanks to a Dear Friend," and I'm going to be using that in gray granite. And I will tell you, I've cheated a little bit. I did get one ready and completed for the card, because my stamp, for some reason, I don't know if my label is a little wonky, but I've had the hardest time getting the sentiment to line up properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first punch one edge of my strip, and I like to turn it over and make sure that the edge is flat up against the back of the punch and that it looks pretty even. And then I'm going to punch, and you're going to save this little piece. Okay, this is going to be an important piece of this technique. So I'm going to swing this around, and let's see if I'm going to be able to do this right the first time. I will be very surprised if I do, but let me just eye it up. Well, it's the stamp or the, I'm not sure what it is, but you're going to get the general idea here of this. So I'm lining it up as far to the edge as I think I want it, and then I'm going to stamp. Well, that's not too bad, all things considered. So let me put my ink away so that I don't put my arm in it. And the trick is to take this little piece here, lay it on the rest of your cardstock there, and put it where you want the end bracket to be. And you're just going to put a little dot there. And if you really want to be particular, you can pull out your trimmer and do this, but I just kind of eye it up. I'll trim that. And then you're going to push this back in. And turn that over. And again, make sure that you are flat against the back of that. Maybe you need to shimmy it just a little bit. Punch. And then your label is even in that space. So rather than trying to punch your label out first and then fit your sentiment in, this works much easier, I think, because it guarantees that you're going to be pretty even as far as you eyeing it up, I guess, for that sentiment. So we'll set that aside. We have that part done. That's the only stamping in this particular card. So what I wanted to show you is how we're going to do the flower. And actually there's 4 dies, and I'm going to do them in order of size because that's how you're going to put the flower together. Okay, so there were the 4 dies you're going to use for the peony. Oops, this is upside down. And no, that wasn't upside down. Now it's right. So this is the bottom of your dies. There's going to be a very distinctive little design here that's going to help you place this this all together. So it's smallest to largest, and I went ahead and pre-cut the champagne foil. Now I know the colors that go with the DSP are gray granite, basic gray. I know we do have silver foil, but I kind of liked the champagne in that it has a little bit more of a pinkish tone, I think, and I think it's going to work well with the card itself. So I need to get my glue dots out here. And oh, there's one other piece that I forgot to tell you about. So this is the stamen piece, and I cut that out in pink. So I'm just going to move that off to the side. So to put this together is about as easy an assembly as I think you can find. So you will see that there's a cut in the next layer. You're just going to fit this in. And the very first one, I will admit, is a little bit tight, but it's not terrible. Now when I turn this over, you're going to see how those pieces match up on the bottom. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of glue dots on here to help hold my flower together. You don't need a whole lot. You just want to keep it from shifting around. And yes, I still have my old pokey tool. Okay, so I'm just going to slide that in and make sure those pieces are lined up, and that's my first layer. Then I'm going to do the same. I had this little opening here. I'm going to push that in. I'm going to turn that over. And you see, you're going to follow that little line that matches on the bottom. So again, I'll just do the same thing, and I'll probably put a few more glue dots on here because I'm covering a little bit more area. Okay, that should hold that in place. Let me peel those backies off. And I'll slide that up into place. And then the last one is going to be the base, of course. And the same thing. Now this one, you're going to actually turn the centerpiece just a tiny bit to fit that curvature. So you see it's still fitting that curve there. So again, I just slide that center back a little bit and figure out where I want to put my glue dots. this was crazy, crazy easy. And the first demonstrator that I saw do this was Kylie Bertucci, our Australian demonstrator. And I just couldn't believe how simple it was. And I'm glad, because I didn't want it to be an overwhelming, fussy sort of thing, because that turns me off, and I'm sure that would have turned some customers off as well. So that's it. That is the finished posy. And I'm not sure if you can pick it up because of the shimmer or the shine of the paper, but you see these embossed parts of the posy itself. And the last thing that I need to do is, if you just slightly bend here, I'm going to put a glue dot on the back. And you're just going to tuck that in here and push it down a little bit to where you think it needs to go. And just press it so that glue, and that's it. So that's our peony. I almost wanted to say posy. That's our peony. And the original card that I showed, let me just pull that back here. It may be a little difficult to see. The leaves are the base of the leaves are vellum, and then I use the gray granite for the little detail. And they're kind of hard to see. They kind of blend into the background. So what I thought I'd do when I was making this card was to run the leaves through an embossing folder. Now first, let me just back up for a second, and I'll show you the dies. Let me move the flower out. So the solid ones are going to be the base of your flower, and then these are going to be the detail that goes over top. And I mentioned, I think in my detail when I posted earlier today, that I cut my solid pieces out of vellum, and then I used the gray granite. But what I did first was I took some of our new adhesive sheets and applied a piece to the back, and then I cut my dies out, because if you were to try to put wet glue on these tiny pieces, which I did on the card that I made originally, it gets to be a little cumbersome. I am not the best at putting the wet glue on to begin with, so I figure, why make myself crazy? So again, let me find something color to put this against to see if you'll see it a little bit better. I don't know if you can or not, but there's some detail now on these leaves. And I use the Tasteful Textures embossing folder, no, Tasteful Textile embossing folder, to give the leaves a little bit more dimension. And now all I have to do is to figure out what's the right side and the wrong side. I think it was right the first time. Okay. And all I have to do now is, there's a white sheet that's probably a little hard to see, or white covering. So I just have to peel that piece off, and then stick that to my leaf. And that could not be any easier. If you have not purchased those adhesive sheets, get them. We used to carry the Sizzix brand, remember, several years back, and I kept mine, and and I use them for the smaller, more detailed type of things when I'm doing my own personal projects. But I'm so happy that we have them back now in the catalog, that we can continue to use them in our classes. So again, you're just going to catch that little piece of white covering off the back and apply your detail. I usually do the bigger side first and then kind of push the next one in place. And this is so easy. I'm not sure that I'll be messing with the white liquid glue much for dies anymore. So they're my 3 leaves with the gray granite on top of them. So all I have to do now is apply them to the back of my flower, but I'm going to do that last because I want to make sure that my placement is not going to impact my card. Okay, so I have petal pink, and I did put the measurements in. This is just a basic card base, and I have it doing the portrait open. And then I've already cut my circle out of my DSP, and this is the largest circle out of the layering circles dies. So it's this big one. I believe it's 3 inches. I didn't measure it, but I think it's 3 inches. So I've already cut that out, and I want to put my doily just behind it, and it just fits the circle. So what was easiest for me was to turn that over and kind of eye up where that was going. And I was going to try to do glue dots with this as well, but to be perfectly honest, it was doing my head in when I was first playing with this card. So I am just using some trusty tape to just hold this in place. And then it's going to all get glued down when or not glued down, I'm going to put it on the front with dimensionals. But you could very well do the glue dots with it. Just this to me was just a little bit easier to handle. Okay, so that now is in the center, and I say it just clears the openings there, just fits in the openings. And we're going to add ribbon to this, and I went ahead and I already colored that white seam binding ribbon. So I have a piece of 6-inch and a piece of 4-inch. And all you do when you're coloring the ribbon is just take your blends, and you're just, you know, running it through across your ribbon for any color that you might want. So to me, this is the ultimate ribbon to have in your toolbox, because that gives you basically any color you could want that we have available in our blends. So I'm just going to wrap this around, and this is a new cartridge I just put in here. And I've been having to kind of nudge it a little bit to get it to go, but once it gets going, boy, it goes gangbusters. Okay. And then this is just going to be a simple knot. I'd done it with a bow, and I didn't like the way the bow looked, so I just went back to the simple knot. Again, this makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to show in a class. A lot of people just get freaked out by bows. Most people can handle a simple knot. Okay, so I'm going to knot that. And I'm not going to cut my, well, yes I am. I'll just go ahead and notch those. Okay. And I wanted this to stand up a little bit on the card. I didn't want it flat because you kind of lose the whole doily part of it. So I will grab my dimensionals, and for those who are stingy with your dimensionals, this is going to probably freak you out because I'm going to put tons of them on this, because I don't want gaps in my layer. So I put them all around just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. feel. I hope you're all enjoying the projects today that you're getting to see. I can't wait to hop on. I didn't stress myself to try to get any materials prepared since I know we're going to be able to come back and watch the videos. So I'm just going to relax and watch all the other presenters do their thing. And then I can schedule some time to go back and do it at my leisure. So I'm really going to have fun just sitting and watching tomorrow. Oh, look, I put that down there. That wasn't very smart. Okay, so we're just going to place this in our front there and just hit all of our dimensionals. Okay, and at this point I can go ahead and put my sentiment on. And I did pop that up. I'm looking to see, and I did pop that up as well. So let's get with it here, Toni. So it looks like there's a lot of pieces, and I guess there are. It's definitely a card that you would want to do more for your avid crafter, I think. But the possibilities are endless with a card, with this card in the colors. This could be a great wedding card. It could be a nice sympathy card. And of course, you know, your peony can be absolutely any color you want to make it. So the reason I was waiting to put my leaves on is because I don't want them to hang over the side of the card. So I'm going to put one big leaf there and my two smaller leaves. So let's tackle the big one first. I'll just throw some glue dots on here. Again, I'm one of those people that I eye up just about everything. I do follow measurements when I have to, but for the most part, I am like, okay, that looks even. Okay, that looks good. It's the same way I tend to hang pictures and stuff around the house, which drives my husband crazy, but that's why I do it when he's not around. Okay, so that's going to be fine there, and I'll just put some glue dots here off to the side. Let's put a few of them here, because I'm also going to come back and put dimensionals on the flower, because again, we want to try to show off that doily a little bit. So I'll stick one a little higher and one a little lower. And again, this is one of those cards where you really need to kind of be up close to see all the detail of it. It's hard to photograph the foil paper. I think sometimes just the way the light catches it, you're not getting the true feel of it. But I was quite happy with how it came out. And the funny thing is, it's not initially what I had in mind. What I was envisioning was using the stamp set that we had in the holiday mini last year that had the snow globe in it, and I was going to try to put it behind the snow globe, and the flower is just a bit too big for that, so I had to kind of revisit the whole card and figure out what I wanted to do, and this is what I came up with. And the last piece is our bling, so I'm using the Elegant Faceted Gems. And I did the placement of 3, as we probably know. The eye is drawn more to odd numbers then even. Down there, I feel like my sentiment's just a little bit off. But that's it. That is the finished card. This is just an exquisite die, and it could not be any more easy to work with. And I hope by showing you this card, I've reduced any fears or anxiety you might have had about working with it, because it truly is one of the easiest die sets that I think we've put out in quite some time. So I hope you have enjoyed the card, and as I said, I will have the tutorial posted when I do the video. That will be sometime tomorrow. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, you can leave me a message on the NC Demos page, or you can make comments on the video once I do get it posted there. But I want to thank you for taking the time to watch, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presenters that we're going to have today. Thanks.